Click the link in the description for your free Amsoil catalog. Before we get started, I'd like to give a quick shout out to some of our friends. The Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Search for them on Facebook. Central Minnesota Pond Racing. Search for them on Facebook. The historic Lancaster Motel for the ultimate Eastern trail riding adventure. Crane's Snowmobile Museum at 172 Main Street in Lancaster, New Hampshire. The Vintage Snowmobile Club of America Quarterly Magazine. The Bridge Street Garage Racing Team, the house racing team of the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast. The New Hampshire Snowmobile Museum at Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire. And lastly, if you decide to advertise with the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast, this could be your advertising message. Good evening and welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here. I also hope that everyone had a wonderful summer. I sure did. Nice to have some time off from the podcast, but it's really nice to pick it up again and start with a full season all through the winter until the end of March. So thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into everything, I want to make sure that everything is working properly. I'll tell you the one thing that is not working properly tonight is my ability to adjust the composition on this camera. As you can see, it's zoomed out wider than I like it to be. I usually have it a lot tighter. It's just not working tonight, so I apologize. I ask you guys to roll with me. The show must go on, as they say. But as I was saying, before we start, to make sure everything is working properly, if you can see this misadjusted camera, and if you can hear my voice, please make some comments in the comment section. Let us know where you're viewing this from and what your favorite sled is, and just let us know that you can see and hear everything okay. Let's look at a few quick comments, and we're going to get right into it. We have 3 guests waiting for us in the green room tonight. This is a record, and I'm really excited about it. I've just been speaking with them, and they're excited about it as well. So we're going to get right into that here in just a minute. But let's take a look at a few comments that have come in. We've got Brian Van Haverbeek. Glad to see the show back on the air, and we are glad that you're glad. Yeah, this is wonderful. It's great to be back. Joshua Gilbert, he was on the show last year, and he'll be on again this year. Great, good to see you again, Mike, he says. We've got Diane Baker, who I met finally at the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame in Lancaster, New Hampshire a few weeks ago, where she was inducted. That was a really wonderful time seeing her inducted, and it was just a wonderful time, wonderful experience to meet her and visit with her. So I thank her for that. we've got a Facebook user. There's no name there, but just says, hi, Mike. Also, our dear friend Judy Rinaldi, who was inducted last year into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. I would love to have you on some point this year, Judy, to talk about some of your racing memories. And if you have a room with trophies or snowmobiles or anything like that, love to do some show and tell. Please give that some thought. And more from Judy Rinaldi, who's giving us a cool little smiley face there. Robert McQueen, glad to be back. Robbie Rupp, he snowmobiles up in the Colebrook, New Hampshire area, West Stewartstown, I believe. Brian says, here is us loud and clear from Mount Bridges, Ontario. Perry Kebnitz, regular viewer from Pembina, North Dakota. Peter Chappell bought a 600 EFI, outstanding. Judy Rinaldi says, let's go Rupp. She used to race Rupp back in the day. We've got Barry Van Gilder from Birchwood, Wisconsin. And this is the last one I'm going to pop for now, but as we're doing the podcast, I'll pop the comments on just so we can kind of get into the program. Jeremy Wagner says, hello from Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. Hearing and seeing us loud and clear. One of his favorite sleds is a 72 Boland's Spirit SS 440. Excellent. Thank you so much for viewing, Jeremy, and for weighing in. Let me switch screens here. Here is a look at what we've got for the menu tonight. We've got Mike Meagher, publisher of the VSCA Vintage Snowmobile magazine and founder of Central Minnesota Pond Racing. We're going to bring him on in just a second. We have a second round of live guests. We're going to have Spencer Beattie and Lucas Nast of the Bridge Street Garage Racing Team. They're based out of Lancaster, New Hampshire. So, enough of this monkeying around. Let's bring on our first guest. And we have Mike Meagher. Let's adjust the screen here. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks a lot for having me on tonight.
Well, my pleasure. It's great to see you. In fact, you were our last guest back in the spring. I see you've got a little facial hair going on. It looks great on you. Have you had a nice summer?
It's the fall of the year, so every year in the fall for a little while, you know.
Nice. Good deal. Yeah, it looks great on you. And you had a nice summer?
Yeah, we had a good summer. Actually, things really picked up around here again, you know. Last year, things were a little slow everywhere with the COVID deals and stuff. A lot of the snowmobile shows since spring have really done well. Again,
nice.
Attendance have been good, and so pretty decent summer. A good warm summer. A lot of good times at the lakes and stuff like that. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, as luck would have it, this just came in the mail the other day. I don't know who sent it to me. That's your latest edition of the VSCA magazine. Mike is the publisher of this magazine. Comes out quarterly. I've met this gentleman, Fred, on the cover at a couple of snowmobile shows, done some video with him. I'll have to put that video on at some point during the year. But yeah, Mike, please tell us about what's new and exciting with the magazine.
Yeah, well, the magazine, of course, we still try to cover as many shows, restorations, and of course racing. The vintage racing has been a big thing the last couple of years for sure.
Sure.
Got
While you're talking, I'll try to give people a taste. But go ahead, please continue.
We have Olaf Ain still writing his little tech article for us, who always does a great job.
Yes, he has some excellent articles.
Over there yet. I just want to congratulate, Fred again for he was a blast having him out in Marshfield at the national show, and then to see his Starfire win was great.
Nice.
What a great family they are.
Yeah, for sure. I think him and his son-in-law built that sled, didn't they?
Yes, his son-in-law did most of it, and kind of a lot of it was behind, Fred's back. Fred really didn't even know how much work they were really doing to it. He
really? Was that?
Picked it up so he could ride it again someday. And,
wow!
What a beautiful job they did.
They had a surprise for him. They surprised him with a big reveal.
Yeah, it was great. And speaking of the Marshfield show too, the national show in Marshfield turned out it was an awesome time. A little bit of extra rain that we probably didn't need,
Sure.
But they had great buildings. Everything was inside. The show went really well. The people in the community were very supportive, and just a lot of nice sleds that were there. I mean, every class and division had very strong sleds.
Nice. That is great to hear. That is great to hear. And if you're intrigued, if the viewers are intrigued as I'm flipping through this magazine here, it's kind of awkward the way I'm sitting to do this, but I wanted to give people a taste of what this magazine is like. And if people are intrigued by this, there is a link in the description so that people can subscribe. It's very affordable. It comes out 4 times a year, and it's on nice, high quality, glossy, heavy paper. It's a really well done publication, and I highly encourage you to subscribe to it if you're into vintage sleds like we are, and if that's the reason why you're watching this podcast. It is an excellent investment to click that link and order yourself a subscription of this magazine. Any final thoughts, Mike, about the magazine before we switch gears?
Yeah, just a couple thumbs down. Again, thank you for that. Yeah, we could always use everyone's support, and for all those out there listening too, if you have a you're doing a show or a trail ride, or you have a restoration going on in your garage, you want to take some pictures, write up a little article and send it to us. We'd love to publish it. We like to try to get as much from the East, Midwest, and West in each issue that we can, and
try to mix it up.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's awesome. Everybody loves to see somebody else's restoration.
Absolutely.
And especially in the Midwest, I think I see it out in the East too, is, the vintage trail rides have really come around right now. There's just every weekend here now we have a nice vintage trail ride somewhere,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's nice to put some of them in print. So.
Yeah, and I think this is good timing because from what I can tell, at least in this area here in the East, there are more and more new vintage shows and vintage events popping up, and they're very well attended. Even first-time shows are just incredibly well attended. So to me, that's encouraging news that this is not something that's on the decline. This is a growing thing. This is a vibrant hobby, the vintage hobby. Is that what you're seeing on your end?
Yeah, just one little tidbit, I don't know how important it is, but it's something we keep track of, is how many new subscribers we get each year. And this year we've had more new subscribers than ever since 2005.
Yeah.
And I know some of them they send me pictures and stuff. There's some pretty young, people in it too. Mm-hmm. Young ladies and guys. I mean, so that's the good part. I mean, you can see a lot of new faces getting into the sport yet. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, for sure. It's good especially good to see young people interested in the vintage hobby, because 20 years from now, this hobby is going to look very different. People like you and I may not be here anymore, and we're going to be counting on the younger generation who's interested in it now to keep it alive. And we're going to be meeting some of those people here in just a minute, the younger generation that is very invested in this and excited about it. And I'm very confident that they're the kind of people that are going to carry this hobby forward and keep it alive.
No, I agree very much so. And just something that's pretty exciting coming up next year, in June, the VSCA National Show is heading back to the East. And
what's the latest on that?
And we're going to be in Old Forge. So, I mean, we're looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a really a lot of fun there also,
Wonderful. Yeah, as that gets closer too, we'll have to have you on again to talk that up. And if you have any kind of graphics, if they're doing graphics to help promote that show.
Okay, you bet. And I tried to send you one tonight. It was probably kind of grainy when it got there, but I was in a 2-minute hurry. But I don't know if you got it or not. But.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been running around as well trying to prepare for the show. Yeah. Being the first show of the season, it's a lot of detail. But I'll look that up, and I'd like to have you on here on a regular basis over the coming season.
Sounds great.
Now, good deal. Now, before we go on to the next thing, I'm going to play a quick commercial, and then we're going to bring some racers on. We're going to be bringing team. I'm sorry, John Blank. I'm so nervous tonight. Bridge Street Garage Racing. The racing team is going to be here tonight. They're our house racing team, and they're going to come on here in a couple of minutes, or in about a minute, and ask you some questions about the upcoming season for Central Minnesota Pond Racing. But before we do that, I do have to pay the bills with a quick commercial. If you guys can just hang on 1 second, we'll catch up with you on the other side with the whole crew here on the panel. I'd like to give a quick shout out to our friends at the historic Lancaster Motel in Lancaster, New Hampshire. The Lancaster Motel has been serving snowmobilers since the 60s, and they are the perfect eastern trail riding destination for snowmobilers young and old. The Lancaster Motel is right on Corridor Trail 5 in Lancaster, New Hampshire, with plenty of parking for vehicles, sleds, and trailers. Plus, the Lancaster Motel is within walking distance of Crane's Snowmobile Museum, plus restaurants, shopping, entertainment, and more. Click the link in the description to learn more about the Lancaster Motel. All right, so now we're ready to bring on our new guests. We've got Lucas and Spencer. We're going to bring them on here. Let me do the clicks and bring them on. We've got the whole crew here tonight. And as you guys are having this conversation, I'm going to let you guys take it over here for a minute. And as people are viewing this and have questions about anything that's being discussed, please make a comment and I'll pop it on the screen. And you guys can join in the conversation at home. But I understand that Spencer and Lucas have some questions for Mike. And I'll let you guys take it over and ask Mike some questions.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey,
How are
Mike.
you?
How you doing, Spencer? Good.
Good.
I just wanted to say first, thank you to Mike for having us on the podcast tonight. It's pretty cool. It's very honoring, for someone back east. And there's not much ice oval racing, and not much snowmobile stuff going on. So it's pretty cool to have us on here to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great having you guys on.
So I guess I'll start with some questions, Mike. We're very interested in the CMPR racing series. And we've actually been thinking about coming out this winter to do maybe a couple races in between some of our local races. And if the border is actually open, we're trying to hope to be able to go into Canada, do some races up there. But as we all know, it's kind of up in the air. So we're trying to look to fill our schedule. So we just kind of threw some questions together for you, and maybe you could give us some answers.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
All right, Spence, go away, buddy.
Okay.
So we're mostly curious too on what your most entered class is. Like what's your popular class out there?
Yeah, probably one of the biggest classes right now. Well, the super stock classes are always big.
Yep.
With CMPR, for those that haven't followed, now we race everything from vintage single cylinders up to pro lights. And sometimes we'll have 28 to 29 singles.
Wow.
But then probably the biggest class continually is the F500s right now. We average between 28 and 32, F500s a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, and those guys, they're just putting on a heck of a show right now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, our Supermod 440, the same as the WC class.
Right.
We'll have a good solid, 10, 12 of those each weekend, and a very good run. Mitch Giesking, Curtis Peterson, Matt Beattie, some really good runners. So it's always fun to watch that class too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. My first question for you, Mike, is how many races do you guys have planned for the 2022 race season?
Okay, we actually have 7 races on the schedule, but 5 of them are CMPR season points races. And we also run a race for the Strathcona Cup up in Strathcona, Minnesota, which I think is going to be the 55th year consecutive running of that race this year. And then we do the Hatteen Cup in Glenwood at the first Saturday of March, which is not a points race. Yeah, so we got a full schedule again.
Right. Cool.
So, Mike, how many average entries do you guys have on a race day?
We usually end up with about like 95 to like 120 drivers, and usually our entries get up around 400 entries for the day.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a pretty big day. We start racing at 11. We don't get done till like 4. I mean, and we click them off one after another if we can. So.
Right.
And again, the fans get to see everything from single cylinders to pro lights in one afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of answered one of my questions, Mike. I asked one of my questions I had down here is CMPR a day event or is it a Saturday, Sunday weekend event?
Yeah, we race all right now, and we've always raced just a one-day event. It's a Saturday event. We usually have early sign up someplace near the track or right at the track on Friday nights. You can come in. We don't do computerized sign up. we do it the old way yet. You can come in and just sign up the night before or the morning of.
Right.
But it's pretty simple. We run a very simple system and business model for our races. It's you pay $35 per driver, and you can race as many classes that you have a legal sled for.
Wow.
You don't have to pay a second.
Oh,
wow. We go out. We really bust our butts we try to get enough sponsorship to put the stuff on, so we can take the pressure off the driver. You know, that's been our goal since we started. You know,
that's cool.
Yeah, and it takes a lot sometimes to get it, but the sponsorships really came in the last couple of years really good. You know.
Right. Well, that's the same with even us. I mean, it takes a lot, you know, to do what we're doing, and a lot of people don't realize how much go into these sleds. I mean, I know me and Spencer, we've been working since the end of the last race last winter, planning for the 2022 race season and building all new equipment and outfitting a trailer and completely setting up a trailer and getting, lathes and bridge ports and, metal brakes and just trying to get as well equipped and well-rounded garage that we can be to build as much as that we can ourselves, so.
And I totally understand. I've been a racer for many, many years myself. A little while ago, though, as you can see that.
Right.
I'm getting old now, but I actually was fortunate to have a pretty good run. But a lot of people don't realize the hours that it takes just to come and race that day.
Right.
You know?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the garage time can be a lot of fun too.
It is. It is. And
it's very satisfying, when everything comes together. Like you guys last year making the top 10, that was pretty cool, at Eagle River. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I always say the races are won in the garage, so whoever's putting the most time in.
That's right.
Go ahead, Spence.
So, Mike, what do you guys use to clean your track with? A sweeper, plows?
Yeah, well, we use plow trucks and some events. A lot of times the track maintenance, except for we bring a shaver to every track. And the shaver comes with CMPR, and we shave every plow brake. Our tracks, we're pretty proud of our tracks. They stay pretty good. We've had it after racing 5 hours on a track, you could race the next day again. I mean, they stay really nice. There's going to be an inside groove that gets deep. There's like no way to get rid of that. We very seldom have any moguls, unless sometimes you can have a bad spot and the ice breaks out or something. At plow brakes, we go out quick. We try to freeze them back in and keep them smooth. But they shave. And then a couple of our events have sweepers, but other ones just have plow trucks. So
that's cool.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. When does your guys' season start? When's your first race date?
Okay, this year we'll race the. You got a question there. It'll be January 14th, I believe. I don't have a calendar for me right now. It's the week after Vintage Weekend at the Derby.
Yeah.
Normally we race the first Saturday before the Vintage, but this year, just the way the calendar falls, that Saturday is New Year's Day. So we just chose to take that off and start the week after the Vintage Derby this year, which will be in Spicer, Minnesota. And that one's been a great race the last couple of years. It's all free gate to the spectators. They raise a lot of money down there and put the event on during their it's like a Winterfest days that they got going for the whole weekend.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
So when do you guys usually get iced by then?
That'll vary, but we're usually our test track is where when we go to the race on Trace and Grego, which is coming up on our 17th consecutive year there now, is we also maintain a test track there all year. And we've been on the test track by December 1st, with probably 6-7 inches of ice on the lake, But by the time we race there, by New Year's Day, we usually got anywhere from 10 to 14 inches by New Year's. You get into a weekend of New Year's, we pretty much got 14 inches everywhere then,
Right.
And by end of February, sometimes we're looking at 28 to 32 inches of ice, you know.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, we get a lot of ice. We put up with a lot of cold days to get it, but it's worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of my questions here I have for you is, how many volunteers does it take to put on a CMPR event? I mean, I know before I was doing the ice racing thing back at home, because I mean, we don't get cold weather like you guys do. You know, we get more snow than cold weather. So all we did was snow racing. You know, they'd groom it, old sleds, we'd race. But I know even with that, it still took a lot of volunteers to put it on, and it's not very easy to pull the volunteers together to do it. But I mean, it's usually the guys that did do it was dedicated guys that were a part of it.
Yeah, usually we start like at a race site, you know, the Tuesday before. It depends on how much snow we got too. Usually it's Tuesday before. I'll go there the first day on Tuesday with probably 4 or 5 volunteer plow trucks, and then we'll get the infrastructure done. You know, the basic thing all laid out. Wednesday, we kind of just redo everything again, make sure it's good. By Thursday, then we start putting up the fencing, the banners. By the end of the week, we probably have 20 different volunteers out there, probably.
Wow.
And the day of the race, you know, CMPR, then we have like 12 workers that actually run the race that day.
Right.
So yeah, it takes a lot of manpower, and one thing right now, we have just a great crew here in Minnesota that's been helping. It's been really good. So
Good.
That's
Glad to hear
good. So one of my last questions was, we kind of already answered it in a way, but how many classes does CMPR offer?
Okay, we have, like I said, we have 32 classes, and of those 32, I believe 5 of them are juniors, and all the juniors race free with us, all the way from the vintage juniors to we have junior novice, we got the F500 juniors, we have in vintage junior, we have a 10 and under class that we started 2 years ago. KC 120 racing around this area was really big for a while. It was kind of fading out, and it was very expensive actually if you want to get into KC 120 racing.
Mm-hmm.
So we started a 10 and under class where everybody races like single cylinder, like Bravo, Yamaha Bravos, 300 enticers. And basically all they do is put on some wear bars and a few studs, and they let these kids go out and race.
That's cool.
It's amazing. The kids that started 2 years ago to last year. I mean, they're jumping up, you know, to the 10 to 15-year-old class right now and running right with 8, 9-year-olds can run right with the 14-year-olds now.
That's cool.
They learn really fast, you know. So that's been one of my things I've been pretty proud of doing. You know, that was I can't remember last year. I think we had 17 juniors last year.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool, you know.
It's growing.
That's good. It's growing. It's growing sport. Yeah, it's good.
We involve the moms too. We have 3 different women's classes, which are all, I think, you know, all the way from a single cylinder women's class. Usually have like 14 people in that. We get the vintage 85 and older lead spring women's class. Usually get 8 to 10 in that. And then we get the F500 women, which is usually we have to run heats in that, you know, but
really
half of them women are running with the guys, so that we start to give them crap that they shouldn't be with the women, you know.
That's right. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, because I sit in a hotel all week, so I watch a bunch of videos, and I see you guys record your own CMPR races. So I've been watching a bunch of those. I didn't know, maybe you could talk a little bit about it, kind of explain how you guys do it and who does the recording for you. And
and like the live stream we're kind of talking about right now.
Right.
Yeah. Last year I hired, 2 years ago we started it with Barry Braun. I don't know if you heard of XR Accelerated now with the car racing, Duel in the Desert, the dirt track at Bristol.
Right.
He's the one that came to us and said, "Hey, we want to film your races and and sell some footage to MAV TV, which was just awesome. And Barry did 2 races that year, I think, only, and everybody loved it. So last year I hired a team to come in and videotape our races each week.
Right.
And we sell advertising, on at plow breaks, and they run ads. I haven't watched it for a while. I think the ads and stuff still play.
They do.
Then we go to plow break. Yeah.
They do.
And not to knock this guy, he had good equipment and everything. We had some really bad days. We had some really bad snowy days, windy days. The videos weren't as clear as the first year. The quality didn't seem to be there quite as good.
Right.
But we're looking at doing it again. If we can raise enough money, we'll do it again this year. We'd get like 4,000 to 5,000 viewers a day, and then by the middle of the week, it'd be up to almost 20,000 views on the videos. And I know Mike replayed some for us too. He did a really good job for us.
Some of those got 10,000 views. Just that's organic views too, not even putting any money on it. Wow. Really impressive the viewership that gets.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. But yeah,
and our drivers really like it where if their whole family can't be there. We didn't charge for the live stream last year. Again, we went out and we raised enough money to pay for the live stream. So all you had to do was log in. It was free. You know? Yeah, and it was.
That's nice.
We're trying to do again this year.
That's cool.
The driver sponsors, when we do every interviews, they got to plug their sponsors. That seems to go a long ways. Sponsors like to see their name or some of their graphics, on TV, so
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it grows. I personally feel it grows the sport. You're helping the future racers grow themselves into the sport. I mean, by offering to advertise other businesses, is making these businesses want to help these younger generation and some of these other guys race just because it's something cool, something different.
Right, and that was our goal with the live streaming, is just to promote oval racing for sure, but also each individual racer, gets some exposure that way,
Right, that's cool. That's awesome. Cool. I'm out of questions for you, Mike.
Oh, I got one more question, Mike. How many years have you been doing CMPR?
Well, I actually started CMPR in 2013, but prior to that, since, I go back to 2002, I worked with Armin Westlands with the sled circuit. I don't know if you ever heard of that. That was one of the first big vintage circuits here in the Midwest. And I set up a lot of race sites for him. I raced at the same time.
Wow.
And then when Armin, kind of got to the end where he had enough, kind of after many years of doing a great job, we started what we called Oval Racers Alliance. And I sat on the board of that. And we incorporated vintage and late model together for the first time. And I sat on that board until 2000, from 2008 to 2011, 2012. My wife was ill for a while there, so I kind of took a little bit of time off. But then my daughter is the one that she really realized that we were leaving a grassroots type of ice oval racing, snowmobile racing, and ORA became, it was the Gaties, it was the Petersons, it was really a tough place to get into and start racing. So we started a more grassroots circuit ourselves, with no expectation of it growing to the limits that it has now. But it's done very well.
That's cool.
So it's grown tremendously in the past 8 years then.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So we went from 45 to 50 drivers with 3 races a year, to now, like I said, up to 100. And I think the most we ever had was 128 drivers in one day. And we run 7 venues a year, so we're the largest circuit now in the Midwest,
That's awesome.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Yes. We appreciate that.
Job well done.
And we keep it fun. I think that's one of the best things for us. We have a good time.
Right.
Nobody gets chewed out. If something ain't doing something right, we just go say, hey, got to do it better, and the drivers, kind of return the favor that way back.
Right.
Because we're not perfect. If we make a mistake, you're good to them, and some of the drivers come back to us and say, hey, I think this, this class might have the wrong list up or something like that. They will get it correct. So
that's cool.
it's a good group effort. Our drivers make us look very well.
That's
cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, if these guys are out of questions, do you have any questions for Spencer and Lucas?
Yeah, I guess. I know Spencer, and we've been on the cat, right? You started cat for a little bit.
No, that was me.
That was you? Okay.
Yeah. I raced for Chet Hooper the past 2 years, and we decided to go our own ways. And I decided to get Spencer involved, and we decided we'd do it together and start racing together.
Okay, awesome. And now, I've heard some rumors now a little bit. You're changing brands, maybe, or
I
you
am.
have different kids this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm changing brands. We've been running Arctic Cat for the past 2 years, and I had some snow sleds that were Arctic Cat, but I'm going Polaris this year, so
Right.
I'm excited. We've got some good sponsors behind us this year. The crew's been working crazy every weekend. I mean, I work on the road, so the only time we really work in the shop is on the weekend. So, and everyone shows up there Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and been going since the last race last winter. So, can't thank them guys enough to make it happen.
Great. And I know you got some racing, out east, but you're planning on coming to the Vintage Derby at Eagle River again this year?
Yeah, we are. We're really focusing on the WC this year. We're gonna bring 2 sleds this year. We're gonna try to time trial 2 sleds. Pretty much everyone's focus is that Spencer races Supermod and F500, but he decided he wanted to take the weekend off to really put the focus into the WC weekend for me. So, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, very nice.
So that was good.
Mm-hmm. And we did, chatting earlier, you mentioned about maybe coming a little bit further west, maybe trying to pick up one of our CMPR races.
Right.
I mean, that would be, you'd have to be our guest that weekend then, our featured guest. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, you guys have a very good, I don't want to say this, a very good, well-rounded race group that races there. I mean, like you said, Matt Beattie, Curtis Peterson, Midge, all these guys. I mean, they're all in the WC with me. They made the WC.
I don't know if you ever got AJ is kind of coming up through he's been racing for a long time in snowcross.
Right.
He's hooked up with the derbies now, and
they
had a sled last year. They had plenty of motor the way it seemed, but a lot of handling issues. But they built a whole brand new sled over the summer now too. So I look for AJ to be right in there in the mix with them this year too. So So yeah, it's just fun to watch those guys every weekend.
It is. It's cool, and that's kind of what our plan is. I know we've kind of somewhat made a baseline schedule for the 2022 race season, but I mean, with COVID still up in the air, I don't know what Boonville, New York's going to do, but me and Spencer have talked, and the team, because I mean, we can't go just the 2 of us. It takes the whole team because there's just so much going on. But we've talked about if Boonville cancels, we're going to plan to go to Wisconsin again for the second weekend out there for Vintage. So,
sure.
But we're trying to. I mean, we really would like to come out to one of your guys' CMPR races and be involved and see what it's all about, and maybe
that'd be a big trip. Big trip.
Yeah, we ain't afraid to put the miles in.
Well, it would be a fun time too. I mean, traveling that far, there always is Mother Nature. That would be that's where the bummer would be. If something you get caught in the middle of a blizzard, you get all the way out here and we have to cancel or something. But it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
No, I'd say probably half the fun of it's traveling to the race. So,
and that's the group. If you're with a good group to make it fun, that is
right.
That's the highlight. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, we try to have a good time either way. So,
great. Well, we'd sure love to have you guys out here for a race. That'd be a lot of fun. We have quite a few people coming from the West this year to race with us again, so that's kind of neat. And hopefully the Canadian people can come down We
Right.
missed them last year. We missed about 10 drivers up there last year that come down and race with us. So they're a
Is
good
that
bunch of
you
people
guys
too.
have? Is that as many as you have Canadian racers? Is about 10 roughly?
Usually we get about, on a weekend like that, we'll get 10.
Yep.
Sometimes maybe 8. But and a lot of them were the IFS class. They were about half the IFS class for, the Snow Pro class
No.
for
For sure.
Yeah, Matt Zly and Bizdal. Those guys are all good competitors too.
Right.
Very fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. And just one thing I could ask here quick, have you seen any of the rumors on VintageSled.com or on Facebook about the 440 Supermod Nationals that I don't really know what they made a name for it yet, where they're going to put up a $25,000 purse for like a 3 to 4 day race, only 440 Supermod. Have you seen that yet?
I did see something about that. I actually, we were working in the shop when I saw it for the first time. I said, "Hey, what do you guys think about doing this?" And everyone laughed. They thought it was funny, But no, I don't know. I think I can't remember where it was.
Group, I know that group very well. They're getting money raised. I mean, they're going to get the money raised.
Really?
It's going to be at a land track right now. That's their plan. They're working out with the track owners. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done this year, but I tell you, that's going to be a really good chance that it's going to be. Yeah, next year that'll happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's going to be pretty cool. I mean, you're really going to have to run a lot of races to make it to that final 12 sleds.
Absolutely.
And we're just kind of hoping that's the big thing is if they do it, they're hoping, we can get sleds away from the east, away from the west. The west was always snow, kind of like you guys in New Hampshire.
Right.
And last year they kind of started converting over to ice now also. I think this year they have 4 or 5 in Wyoming, Colorado, ice races, and
Right.
Idaho. So yeah, there'll be more of those ice sleds from there now too. So,
Right.
it's very interesting and fun,
For sure.
Yeah.
I know we race in Unity Ice Pond in Unity, Maine. They do a series there, and they have about, I think, 3 or 4 races planned for the schedule. Mike Lancaster puts that on, and they always said they never thought it was going to blow up to be the way it was. So they're pretty happy with that.
And yeah, we talked a lot about the 440 Supermod, the F5. We do have, like, almost all of our super stock classes too we have a lot of new builds getting done for those classes this year too. So It's always nice just to see new stuff coming out. They work their way through the super stocks and then pretty soon they're in the mods too,
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the future is looking really bright right now in vintage racing, I think, In fact, I'm pretty positive that it is. Just the true numbers are there, So.
Right.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this segment of the show, or?
No, I'd say we're good.
Yeah. And
Cool
again,
deal.
thanks, Mike, for letting us come on and chat. It's a lot of fun,
Yeah,
Oh,
no, Mike,
happy
we
to do
really
it.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, and hope we can do it again.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
pleasure.
we'll
I'd like
come
to have
back
all you
on
guys
and do it
on a
again.
regular basis. It adds so much to have different points of view and have some crosstalk going on. It's just really nice, and I appreciate you guys coming on and being part of this. It really means a lot. It really adds a lot to the podcast, and I look forward to having you guys on in the very near future.
For sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
Mike.
All right. Have a good evening, guys.
Take care.
Yeah,
All righty.
take care.
All righty. Well, guys, how fun was that? That was fun having some guests on. That's kind of some new territory for this podcast, getting more into racing. Because racing, I have to confess, one of the reasons I did this is because as much as I like racing, it's exciting, it's entertaining, I can't go down the rabbit hole for that deep dive into a nuanced, in-depth conversation about racing. And these guys really delivered the goods tonight as far as being able to bring that to the podcast. And I thank them so much. That really brings a lot to it. We've got a whole lot more for you for this podcast. And I have to apologize if you're just joining us. I was not able to adjust the composition of my camera tonight. So I'm sitting kind of low and the camera's wider. The shot is wider than I would have liked. But you're all going to have to look at that for another second because we're going to be getting into some cool stuff. Here is the menu that we've got. We're going to be showing a pre-recorded interview with my friend Ray Parenteau, and he lives not too far from me, and he contacted me recently about his new acquisition, and that's all I needed to hear to go up there because he's just 15 minutes away. So I went up there and we took a look at his recently acquired 1973 Rupp Magnum 440. Now I know I've teased you with that, but before we take a look at that video, I need to tell you about an event that's coming up this weekend. If you're in or near Vermont or New Hampshire this weekend, I'd love to invite you to this Vintage Snowmobile Show and Swap Meet. It's going to be in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. If you're coming up or down I-93, you get off at Bethlehem and head east down 302. It's a few miles. You go through the little town of Bethlehem. You go through that, and it's a few miles out of town, and you can't miss it on the right. It's 4093 Main Street across from Beach Hill Auto. In fact, it's the owner of Beach Hill Auto that's putting on this event. His name is Phil, and he and I have been working together to I've been doing more of the promotional side, but he's got a lot of good exhibitors coming and vendors coming. Now, they do ask if you're planning to come as either an exhibitor or a vendor to come at 9 a.m. to get things set up, and then the general public is to arrive around 10. And there'll be trophies awarded. There's a small vendor fee. If you've got swap items, it's only $10. But it's going to be a great time. And if you're in the area, I hope you'll come by and join us. So without further ado, let's take a look. Let me cue this up here. We've got my friend Ray Parenteau. He's going to tell us about his recently acquired Rupp that he bought. And this is just one of many installments because he's got at least half a dozen or so Rupps, and this is just scratching the surface. We're going to be doing some more video with him. But let's take a look at this one Rupp that he's got.
My name is Ray Parenteau.
Let me fill the screen with it.
In Derby, Vermont. And this is a recent purchase. What we have here is a 1973 Rupp Magnum 440. I acquired it from a gentleman in Connecticut.
Tell me quick in the comments, is that locking up or is that playing for you? If you can see that, Mike, is that...
It does have some bruises on it, but this is a true bar and falling.
Is that locking up?
Everything on this sled is as should be. You can see it has the aluminum skis. Correct shocks. The seat is the original seat. Near perfect condition. The only thing that is not original is they converted it to a Mikuni carburetor setup. It should have Tilliston carbs on it, but from what I understand, and I've had this thing running, the Mikuni setup is much or more friendly to tune.
Yeah.
Idle. I had the one Tilliston carburetor. I got a brand new old stock carb, and he said, "Good luck finding the other one." The gentleman I bought it from, and but it's got some kind of cool features this sled has. Now, this was a race-only sled. If you look here, you see that's your fuel tank. When you look this thing over, it's cool as hell because it's just so simple. I mean, you've got an engine mounted here. There's no wiring on the thing. No headlight. No tail light. No, this is your wiring right here. You got a coil.
Let me come around the side. This is it for the wiring.
Yep. When I got the thing home, I went to fire it up. And I called the gentleman up. His name's Tim. And I said, am I missing something? Is there a kill switch on this thing? He said, oh, yeah, your tether switch. This is your kill switch right here. He said, the sled was running fine when I parked it. He said, this is your on and off right here.
Really? Just as simple as that?
Yeah, that's your kill switch.
Well, do that again if you would.
It's I have it. This thing actually screws into that, so you would have this around you.
Oh yeah, it's a tether.
Off.
Yeah.
I believe it'll pull it out, and I don't know. I'm assuming the cable's supposed to come with you.
Yeah.
And of course your tag and your speedo.
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of my other friends about this sled, and he's kind of a rough guy. He's out in Deer River, Minnesota. And he said, oh yeah, he said, you know what's cool about that sled? He said, look at your throttle. I said, what do you mean? He said, your throttle.
Oh, it's
not
on
like this.
It's on the front.
It's not like that.
The fingers instead of the thumb. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said to him, I go, yeah, you're right. And he said, yeah, well, that thing was designed to do one thing. Go really fast. You just pull it on it.
Yeah.
And Stinger exhaust. I've had it running. It's loud as hell. And so I get the thing. And the gentleman told me, he said, it runs. He said, I had it running. I had it idling. He said, you're going to want to do some work with the throttle because the way the throttle is set up, you can't open those Lacunis all the way. So I said, okay, that's fine. But he said, I rode it around my yard. He said, he was into the whole thing about it being a barn find, and everything as is was correct. So I said to him, I go, well, I don't want to, obviously I bought the thing. I said, I'm gonna make it look like new again. That'll be my attitude here. I haven't got into it yet. I wanted to hear it run. So I get it home and I finally do. I got spark. I figured out the switch, and I sprayed some spray in the thing. And okay, it runs. But why won't it pick up? It's sucking up. So I'm trying to pull the hoses off there, and I'm blowing through. I'm going, there's a blockage. Well, that old gas, there was no gas. I sucked the gas out of the tank, and it was, it's got an odor to it, and it's discolored. I said, well, that's funny, it's not in hard form. But right at the bottom of the tank, right in your fittings right there, it literally was like cheese in there.
Oh, wow.
So I pulled the fittings out, and I literally had to clean them out, and it was hard resin almost. So anyway, clean the tank, put that in. I had the thing running, drain the gas back out of it. So I'll be tearing into this thing fairly soon. I don't really expect it to take very long taking it apart, but I want to polish the tunnel. I've got some new panels ordered and another hood. I don't know. Sometimes you wonder if it's sacrilegious to, okay, is it better off, this is the way it was, but I like my stuff to look shiny. I don't know what to say about it. But,
yeah, for sure.
So, but and this is something that obviously you're not going to ride this thing on a trail.
No, this is showpiece.
This thing was a factory race sled. This is something you go to a show, you show it off, you fire it up, put it on a stand, rev it up, let people plug their ears, and it's. I believe in the day there was a gentleman by the name of Gene Bloom. That would have been Mickey Rupp's team driver, and he had. I've seen like 4 configurations of this sled, and Bill Stull restored one of these to replicate one of Gene's sleds.
Sure, I know Bill.
And now, actually, that's where the panels are coming from.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, Bill's helped me out with a lot of my other projects too. And he is the guy that knows.
He is.
You got some questions, you can shoot him a message and say, Bill, what about this? I was very concerned when I got the thing about those carburetors. I said, if you want something to be time correct, do you want the Tillotons on there? Which a guy could have, but he said there were a lot of those that got converted over to the Lacunis just because it's such a smoother running thing. It's so much friendlier to operate with those. So
yeah,
I believe that'll be the way I go. So, but I enjoy reading this decal. I don't know if you noticed that decal right there.
I did not. Let's take a look.
That pretty much sums up the whole thing about this sled.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it's right there in front of you. So when you come up and you look at it and you say, okay, I guess I know what this is all about. Obviously, you're not doing anything with it except, from what I understand, 90 to 100 horsepower is what this thing could have produced.
Wow.
And that seems like a lot, but that's what I read. So whether that's correct or not, I don't really know. But
that would make this thing move, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's all aluminum. I mean, everything's aluminum. It's not very heavy. I loaded it by myself. From a ramp, I'm going, man, this thing doesn't weigh very much. And, obviously I don't want to break anything, so there's no real bumper on it, so you can't really just muck onto the thing, but it's, I'm sure it'd give a good ride.
Yeah.
So,
cool deal.
Yeah, well, it'll, I'm looking forward.
All right. Well, I think that video locked up. At least it did on my end, and I apologize because it's a really cool sled and some really nice commentary he was making about it. So what I'm going to do to redeem myself is on another podcast, I'll let a few episodes go by and I'll replay that video. And I know why it happened. It locked up because I had it in queue too long before I played it. So what I'm going to do for the next video is I'm going to wait until I play it to bring it up, which means there'll be kind of an awkward moment while I do that. But this is what that video is going to be. We're going to be talking with Midge Rosebrook and Paul Crane about early days of snowmobiling. Now, if you're not familiar, Paul Crane was the first American to ride a Ski-Doo snowmobile in the U.S. or Canada. And he was also involved in the importation of those first Ski-Doo snowmobiles into the U.S. as well as helping to set up the first snowmobile club in America in 1964 and getting the Lancaster Grand Prix set up, which was some of the early racing in New England. And he's going to tell us all about that. I'm running out of bandwidth here, so let me close a couple things. This is that awkward moment I was telling you about. We can all enjoy together. Okay. All right, stand back, everyone. I'm about to play the video.
All right.
And just kind of set it up, and then I'll pan over to him.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Midge Rosebrook.
And that's the wrong one. Okay. Okay, I see what I did wrong. Okay. All right, this time we're going to get it right. Stand back, everyone. Get your popcorn ready, and here we go.
My name's Midge Rosebrook, and we've been talking here about the early days of snowmobile racing and how Lancaster tied into the whole thing. It was the first town in the United States to receive the Bombardier Skidoo in 1959. And this next gentleman is the first American in the United States to ride one. And there he is, Mr. Paul Crane, my friend.
Yeah, my name is Paul Crane. I have the Crane Snowmobile Museum, and we have the Hall of Fame, Midge and I, together down at my museum. I worked for Timberland Machines back in 1958 as the first employee, and I was selling logging equipment, which were Bombardier stuff, for Bob Bottoms. And all of a sudden, Bob came out one day. I was the only employee at the time. Came out one day and he says, "We got to go to Valcourt with me. We got to look at something they want us to sell, maybe." So we went up to Valcourt in 1958, and it was in the summer or fall. And Armand Bombardier was standing on one side of me. I was sitting on the sled, and Bob Bottoms, my boss, was there, and had the wooden skis. It was a plywood front end, and it had a high back. And we rode. Of course, everything back then was gravel. Now everything's asphalt. I didn't even recognize the place when I first went back up. But I rode it down to I guess it's called the machine shop, which was down by the river. It was all gravel. What they did is we run on the track, but they put a rod through the skis and had two wagon wheels on it, and I drove it down to the shop. And then back in December, somewhere around the 5th or the 6th, we brought in the first serial number 1960. Serial number 22.
22.
Yeah, and that was the first one in the United States. And of course, Timberland Machines had places in other spots, especially in Ontario and everything. And they had serial number 17, 16, and 14, I believe, up in Canada.
Yeah.
About the same time. And what happened was, all of a sudden, we got it down here, and I had it, which I have pictures of it out east of Lancaster, where I live now, on snow, and that was the first time anybody was riding. And then we rode a pile beside the museum, you might as well say in the fields,
yeah,
with the wooden skis on it. And it was quite a thing, because people would stop up in front of the Catholic Church and, what the devil's that? These guys out on the thing. So then in the JCs, I was a JC because I was young then, and I believe it was 62. We had one of the first races, which was in 1962, which we were JCs. Bobby Clark was one of the guys with me, and so was Larry Connery, and Mike, maybe?
no,
No.
and it was, I can't think who the devil it was. There's two or three others.
Claude Reed.
Claude came in later. But we had a race there for kids mainly.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the race. And then, of course, in 63, we had the International Grand Prix. And then in 64, we had the true Kilkenny Cup Grand Prix. And, it's quite a history of things on that. But,
And Paul and Bob Bottoms picked the cup up, right? Didn't
right, yeah. We went down to Laconia and picked the Kilkenny Cup up, which is now at the clubhouse of the Lancaster Snowdrifters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Timberland Machines purchased it for the club.
Yeah, Bob Bottoms came up with the money on it.
Yeah.
And it was quite a discussion about it. So Bob and I can't remember who other people were with me, but we decided, I said a big cup, and they finally did it with the names of the winners underneath it. And it really turned out to be, I think, one of the best racing trophies in the United States and
well
Canada.
sought after.
And Canada, really.
Nice, yeah.
And then, of course, after all the races, we'd have the motel here, Lancaster Motel. They'd all come back here, and they'd give the trophies out, and of course, have some beer and whiskey, because there was a bar here.
Nice.
And
Everybody would party and have a good time.
I don't remember if they had hors d'oeuvres or not. I know they had good booze.
Yes.
But that's what really happened down here. And then, of course, in '64, there was a bunch of us that started the first snowmobile club, which is the Lancaster Snowdrifters in '64.
Yeah. Do I understand that's the first snowmobile club in America?
It is the first snowmobile club.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Just like the race. We're the first race, the Kilkenny Cup. We beat Eagle River by a week. I think it was.
Wow.
By a week, yeah.
By a week, wow.
They jumped ahead a little bit though since then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah. We were, as big a race as Eagle River was back then.
Yeah,
When you have a factory team travel all the way from Minnesota just to race at Lancaster, New Hampshire,
yeah, you have to be on the map for that.
you were like the big red pin on the way to race map. You know?
Of course, we didn't always have an oval. We used to have a cross-country race,
Yeah,
which Bob Eastman really did a job on.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that was around here.
that was his forte.
I should have brought that in way ahead of time. And then there were some of us that went up Mount Washington, and
They were the first to ascend Mount Washington.
and they on snow machines, and it was very treacherous because back in '68, somebody let go of their machine and it went over it was a motor ski, went
Yeah.
down over 800,
Tumbling down.
It was 800 feet in the gully.
Still down in there.
I think it's still there, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, Midge and I got together and started the Hall of Fame, but I've always, you might as well say, since 1961, I had a 1961 Skidoo, and Bill Doolin and I, and Pearlie Whipple had one of the first ones. But Pearlie Whipple and I used to go up into Nast Stream and up Phillips Brook. It was the first ones, trappers were up there because Pearlie was a trapper.
Yeah.
And we were trapping beaver, and the pulp piles were 10 to 20 feet high, and we could drive right up
Right up on him?
onto them with the 61 Skidoos. No wooden skis on the ones we had.
Yeah.
But we'd go up there, and he found quite a few places. But one day we met a trapper. Of course, he was on snowshoes the whole time.
Yeah.
And this is 6 miles back in the woods.
Wow.
So he's gone back quite a bit, and he says, "What are you fellas doing?" And he wasn't too pleased, and found out Pearlie was looking for beaver.
Were the trappers impressed by the snowmobile, by the snow invention?
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun. We'd done a lot of stupid things. Bill Doolin and I, like going down the Israel River here,
Yeah.
with the ice breaking behind you all the way. I mean, we really had a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And out where I live right now, in 1962, Bucky had the first 62 one, which was Timberlands, and I had a JLO engine on, not a Rotex. And we were out there coming back, and there's a guide rail on one of the poles just before you get to my place. And next thing we knew, Bucky was up about 20 feet in the air, hanging there. The ski got caught.
Oh, God.
So we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We broke trail over to Berlin, which was the first time. And that's why I a little provoked, because the U.S. Fire Services can't use their land for riding on, but yet it was in their AMC book that the trail was up over Willard Notch.
Yeah, yeah.
But they really did away with that real quick.
Yeah.
They really don't want, it's mainly skiers and hikers,
Yeah.
AMC members, which
No
is
motorized.
I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it's the truth.
No, I understand.
I can follow up on that
You can tell
for
them, you can tell
anybody
them-
that doesn't know.
you can tell them about the.
All right. The gentleman that just spoke here,
Thanks
I
to
called
Midge.
him up one day when we wanted to do that DVD about Lancaster and about the Grand Prix and about snowmobiling, and I asked Paul if we could use his museum and have a bunch of guys come in and be filmed and talk about it. Paul says absolutely. So here's Paul talking about riding the Skidoo that came down from Timberlands back in 1959. And all the time he's talking about it, and you guys heard what he said about, what he's done with the snowmobile just now. So then I'm looking around in his museum with about 100 vintage sleds that he paid for out of his own pocket, in a 50 by 100 building that he built out of lumber off his land out there in his own sawmill.
And I'm thinking, you know, Paul Crane needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you said that, but if it wasn't for Midge, I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. But the thing about it is, Midge was sitting at that meeting the whole time mulling it over.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden realized, hey, he's the first American to ride on a snow machine, and nobody knew that.
Yeah.
After the meeting, he says, excuse me, what I'm going to say, he said, why the hell didn't you let people know that? I said, I really don't care.
So anyway, one day, I go down, I've got a 1948 Jeep, Willis Jeep, that I ride in the summertime. And I drove down to Paul's museum. And he's got a big shop right next door for his heavy equipment. And he and his son, Robbie, were walking across the parking lot. And I stopped the Jeep and got out. And I says, Paul, I have no idea how I'm going to do it because I've never done anything like this before. But I said, I'm going to try to put you in the Hall of Fame. And Paul says, Midge, he said, that would be kind of nice, but he said, I really don't care one way or another. He says, I know I did it, but I says, no. I says, Paul, I said, if anybody should be in the Hall of Fame, it's Paul Crane.
Yeah.
I spent the next 3 years compiling all kinds of stuff and getting testimonials from half a dozen people about Paul's career in snowmobiling. And I sent them to the first museum out there, was the Snowmobile Hall of Fame in St. Germain, Wisconsin. And they sent an email back and said that, well, Mr. Crane wasn't a racer, and we do mostly snowmobile racers here. You should try the International Snowmobile Hall of Fame in Eagle River. So I did, and I sent some information, and I got a little email back from Mr. Tom Anderson, I think
That's
it was.
it. That's it. There's one thing that you skipped to is when you were mentioning the Hall of Fame and everything. When Midge did this, the biggest thing was a lot of the people that could verify what I did weren't around. So Midge had a hell of a time finding things.
Yeah.
It was just lucky enough that 2 or 3 of them, like Bert Moran, which was a truck driver for Timberland in 1958 even, verified it, and then Midge called Bombardier and verified more.
Yep.
I just wanted to get that in there because he's the one that did this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I emailed Bombardier, actually, and I got a lady by the name of Madeline Hull, and she was a historian for Bombardier. And I asked her, I said, can you tell me where the first Skidoo came down into the United States from the Bombardier factory? She said, Timberland Machines, Lancaster, New Hampshire, on December 4th, 1959. I copied that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the, but I did this later. Now, getting back to the first email to Mr. Anderson, I apparently didn't have enough information because he emailed back and he said, gee, he said, that's kind of interesting that Mr. Crane was the first person to ride the Bombardier Skidoo. He said, I'll tell you what we can do. He said, I'll have a plaque made up and I'll set it on a tripod in front of our 1961 Skidoo that we have here in the museum. And I wrote back an email. I said, Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, Paul Crane's not going through the side door at that museum.
Right.
He's going through the front door.
Yeah.
So the next 3 years, I put him through the front door.
Yeah. Nice. And you worked hard to make that happen.
He did. Yeah. And we worked just as hard to get the Racing Hall of Fame for all New England and New York. We really did.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any thoughts on the early days of putting that together and from him having the idea to the next steps to get the ball rolling?
Well, of course.
And I sat at my place for probably 2 or 3 months off and on downstairs with my computer compiling stuff that he'd done.
Right.
But you know what?
And
All the stuff that I compiled, it was Ed Stab that went out in my place. I couldn't go out. I was still working for the Ford garage and everything. I really couldn't afford to go out anyway. And so Ed Stab stepped in my place and went out for Paul. And Ed called me and he said, Midge, he said, I was talking with the board members. And he said, they told me that out of all the members that were inducted in 2015, when we inducted Paul,
Paul is the only one that got the unanimous vote. And he said, they told me that it wasn't because of all the information, because you had less information than some of the other guys did. But you had the right information.
Oh, yeah.
And they said the information that you did send, there was no question
Verifiable.
in anyone's mind that Paul Crane should be in that Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's what got the Hall of Fame thing started with us when we had the Grand Prix. And all those old guys showed up. And Paul and I got to thinking, you know, man, these guys aren't getting any younger. They're in their 70s and 80s, you know. Never got recognized. The Eastern guys never got recognized. Herb Yancey from New York, and rightly so, is in the Hall of Fame out there. But guys like Bruce Dunham, Bob Fortin, Cal Reynolds, Paul Montang,
Like
Bruce
Dunham and his family one year had 132
trophies. Yeah,
That's
For
incredible.
racing.
yeah.
132.
He had 67 all by himself.
All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. We're back. I had to get the microphone turned on now. I don't know how that looked on your end. On my end, the audio was fine, but the video was a little choppy and it would lock up at points. So I apologize for that. This computer that I'm using is getting old. It didn't take much for it to be overwhelmed, and we certainly worked it tonight. As you saw, having everyone on here and everything we're doing. Let's take a look at a few last comments before we wrap up the program. We've got Robert McQueen saying, nice sled. I think he's talking about that Rupp that Ray had. And thank you for that compliment, Ray. Robert, I will pass that along to Ray. And lastly, we've got Mike Meagher, who was on a little earlier, thanking us for having him on. And thank you, Mike, too, for coming on. That was an awful lot of fun, and we hope to do it again in the very near future. Anytime that you've got something to talk about with that's related to vintage snowmobiles, whether it's racing or the magazine or anything like that, be in touch with me, and you've got a platform here to talk about it and get it in front of some people. And thank you so much for that wonderful magazine, too. Oh, let me give one last shameless plug for the magazine. This is how you reach him. This is one of the ways you can get on VSCA.com to subscribe. You can also call the phone number on your screen. Starting to talk like Elmer Fudd here. But here is the latest edition that just came here in the last week of the VSCA Vintage Snowmobile magazine. It is a wonderful magazine. If you like vintage snowmobiles, as I do, this is must-have reading. This is a standard for the hobby, and it's printed on really. I don't know if I can get it close to the camera to give you a sense of it, but it's like heavy gauge, glossy paper, and it feels heavy to look at it, and it's just a really nice magazine. I encourage you to sign up for that, to subscribe to that. And if you're thinking about doing that, there's a link in the description where you can sign up for your, a link in the description where you can sign up for your subscription. All right, I am running out of steam, guys, but thank you so much for viewing. It's great to be back. Great to be doing this. We're going to be doing this every Thursday night live right through until March, through the end of March. And I've got a lot of really cool stuff in the works for you. And I apologize about the camera tonight. Usually I like to get it in a lot closer, but the app that I use to adjust it wasn't happening tonight. So I couldn't adjust the camera to get it in closer the way I like it. But one thing that you can see, even with the bad camera composition, is I've got some new lighting as compared to what I had last year. Last year, right over here where my hand is, they had the Alfred Hitchcock profile shadow. As you can see, Alfred is no more. Well, there's a slight shadow there, but not like the really distinct Alfred Hitchcock profile that used to be there. So the lighting is much better, and it's really simple. So if anyone is thinking about doing any kind of camera work where you need lighting, send me a private message. I'll explain to you how it's done. It's incredibly simple, incredibly cheap. And as far as I can tell, it looks pretty good, at least me looking at the monitor here. One last comment coming in from Jim Gauchione, regular viewer. I remember you being on this viewer of this podcast most of last season, and I really appreciate your coming on, and thank you for the compliment about it being a great all-around show. Thank you so much for viewing. And with that, let me change screens. We're going to wrap it up with this word from Mad Ramps. If you like what you see here, there's a link in the description. If you order through me, I'll send you 3 free Vintage Snowmobile DVDs.